Welcome to our tutorial today where we're neckline binding with stretch fabric. So you might have been doing the Colonia t-shirt project with some jazzy fabric art, and we're up to the neckband tutorial. We're going to be learning how to measure and cut, some tension techniques so you don't end up with a stretched out wavy neckline, and how to top stitch on the front for a clean finish. Let's get started. Let's have a look at bought bias binding. You'll see that there's a lip here and a lip here. That's pre-folded so you don't have to do it. Now if you imagine this red bit is our garment, our neckline, we stitch along this lip, along the crease or along the edge if you're using a overlocker. And then when we have it to the right side, we flip that binding over with the lip underneath and top stitch. So that's what we're going to be doing today. But of course, we're not using non-stretch fabric. We're using a stretchy binding that we've already cut. It's 3 centimeters wide, and we're going to get going with it in black. The hardest part for me is just logistics and where the heck everything is. So I always find my right sides, my wrong sides, and do the little flip over model so that I know that when I flip my binding over, I've got the right side against the right side. You don't want the wrong side showing up on the right side. Now let's get to sewing it. I'm using the overlocker. It helps with my tension, and this is why we buy overlockers, because they're just a dream for stretch fabric. Now the tension part, it's the major technique we're learning, is that we need to have about 1 inch of stretch for that binding. So you can see the binding is sitting underneath my garment, and I'm holding that with my right hand and giving it a little bit of stretch. About 1 inch, I'm pulling it out. And then the top material is my garment. And that garment has to have no tension in it. So you'll see that I'm continuously just puddling that fabric over my held binding. So the neckline, the garment, the t-shirt, doesn't have any stretch, no tension in that, but the binding does. Now the binding, you'll be going, how do I know how much binding, how do I hold that with the right amount of tension? Look, I found it's about 1 inch, and that's the kind of fabrics I used. It's going to be a little bit different with different tensions, different stretch percentages in different fabrics, but it is about 1 inch, especially for a soft t-shirt fabric like this. If it is a stiffer fabric, then it may be a little bit less, and you're going to have to just trial and error it. It's always better to give yourself more tension in that binding than less. If you have a less tension, then your neckline will gape and be wavy, because this binding is acting a little bit like an elastic, so it's holding the neckline in place. Now, if you go the opposite way and you put too much tension in that binding, then it's going to bunch up like an elastic has been applied. Now, in my experience, I don't usually put too much tension in that binding. I have once, and I thought, oh, do I have to undo it and do it again? But the type of fabrics I use are soft and fluid, and it just eased out with the warmth of my body. So it wasn't actually a problem at all. So I recommend always putting a little more than less tension, because you do not want a gapey, wavy neckline. Now, of course, you can see I'm putting my seams the right way so that they're the same as where it joins to the arm. And you'll always notice that I'm holding tension in the binding and plopping the garment over the top so there's no tension. You'll also notice that I didn't measure the binding. I started at the center back And I gave myself a little bit of extra at the start. And this is because I'm lazy and I can't be bothered measuring for every single garment because every tension of fabric, every stretch percentage is going to be slightly different. So I just go ahead and sew it with my held tension in my hand with a long strip of binding. And when I get back to the start, always to center back, I just feel how much tension I should be holding that binding and go to the start, mark off the seam that I want to join my bindings together. So on the start and then on the end. And then I go back to my overlocker and I just stitch my bindings together. Now, if you're doing it on a bias binding, so not cut on the straight like this is cut on the stretchy length of the fabric. We don't have to worry about bias. But if you were doing bias, your join would be on the diagonal, not on the straight. But again, this is for stretch fabric sewing. There's our join. It's just at 90 degrees. And now we go back in and I put my needles back into the tracks of my overlocking so that it's absolutely seamless. And I make sure that that tension is the same as it was. I've already measured that up and I simply finish it off. Again, I do overlock a little bit over the start of my train tracks. I switch my knob to non-cutting so that I don't cut over that already overlocked edge. And then my needles have remained in the same train tracks. I lift off and overlock off. And then we've got it. As you can see, there's no pulling, there's no gathering, there's no bunching, there's no gaping, there's no waviness. This just sits perfectly straight. And we now have to simulate our folding and folding again to do our top stitching part. With our top stitching, we're going to be using a straight stitch and we're just going to be taking it easy. It's a very easy sew at this point because we've already sorted out that tension, and actually all we need to do is make sure that our threads are covered up, that our fold, our first fold, remember this is not a pre-folded thing, it's a stretchy thing, so we have to do that first fold. It's consistent. Then we do the second fold over the top and we have to make that the same all the way along. And we have to line up our foot in some way so that we know that our needle is always going to be tracking along the same line. There's nothing worse than having, a wonky top stitch. Some people like to stitch in the ditch. Now, stitching in the ditch is where you sew directly over the seam that already exists. So it will be like a little valley at this stage on this side. You can do that. I like to have a row of stitching along my neckline, and I like to have it perfectly straight all the way around. So the things you're wanting to learn here is that we have to fold the first fold, we have to fold the second fold. It needs to be consistent. I do tap it out sometimes just to get that consistency. And then you want an even top stitch, not waving or wonking around. The tension has already been set by your first lot of sewing. So if you did that by overlocking, as we did, then you're all good. We're just following the material all the way around, not really putting any tension or anything in it. It just falls out. You might have done it by the sewing machine and you might have done a zigzag stitch, and that's fine. You can absolutely do this on the sewing machine with a zigzag stitch. I would suggest that you do a smaller zigzag stitch, not a wide one, because it will pucker up the fabric, bunch it up. Do a small zigzag stitch and stitch it as if you were stitching along the crease line of a pre-made bias binding. So take it in by 6 millimeters and 1 centimetre, however much you've allowed, and stitch along that line with a zigzag, a small zigzag. And then you'll be up to this part on the sewing machine with a straight stitch. Has it ever broken because it's a straight stitch on a sewing machine and the thread is not a stretchy thread? I've never had a broken neckline. My necklines, I guess, are quite wide, so I'm not pulling and stretching them out and breaking the thread. You obviously need to have a stretch needle in your machine. That makes a world of difference. So if you're having troubles, you can change your needle, because a fresh needle is also going to make a world of difference. People probably don't change their needles as much as they should. Generally, the rule of thumb is new needle for new project. So don't wait until your needle breaks. New needle for new project. And make it the right needle for your material. So we're working with a jersey or a ballpoint needle, and I'm finishing off my top stitching now, keeping the first fold and then the second fold, tapping it out to get that evenness, just keeping my same line of stitching going evenly all the way around. And this is our finished product, a neckline with even top stitching all the way around. There's no wavy, there's no wonky, it's just a perfectly sitting neckline. Everything is encased, there's nothing itchy or scratchy on your skin. And because it's stitched all in black against black, you also can't see the underneath stitch. Now on this cami, you can see, because I used red, I could have put cream in my bobbin, but I've used red, and you can see on the underside that stitching. It's not a problem, of course, because it's on the underneath side, and it's the front that we always want to be looking beautifully clean and neat. So go use your new skill. Go use stretchy binding to create any shape neckline you want. And of course, I hope you have cloned your favourite t-shirt and you have done some fabulous fabric art. Join me next time. We're going to be going into shoes and how we can use fabric art for shoes. Of course, in the meantime, enjoy your comfy life.